what do you hear from other filmmakers or from film students or from people who are aspiring to do what all of you do? What are their fears, and which ones do you feel like that's a real fear? What you should actually watch out for is this. And what are the things that people are more scared of than they should be, and what are the things that they're not as scared of they should be?
Well, I think what comes up first to my mind is I think anyone who hasn't started yet, their biggest fear is failure, and I think that's a false fear because there is no other way to learn how to do it than to fail. Like if you don't fail, you're not learning anything. So fail bigger, fail harder, and it's nothing. I think another thing with producing is people think, when is that opportunity going to come? When am I going to get the grant to be able to go and do this thing? And it's just, I've never seen that as an obstacle because it's just, I'll sell everything I own to go do a shoot and then, money comes later. It's, you just make it happen now and that's it. There's no one day, how did you get that job as a filmmaker? You went and got it yourself. So, I think that's the biggest fear is I haven't been given the opportunity and I'm going to fail. And that doesn't exist.
You stole my answer. Thanks. No. Fear of I teach a lot, if you can believe that. Hungover. No, I'm usually in better shape. It's Saturday, right? But I teach a lot, and fear of failure with the students. I also feel like just there's a stubbornness. I feel like in some first-time filmmakers that the inability to take criticism, even though it's helpful in constructive criticism. I think that's a big stumbling block for people who start off. They feel like their stuff is perfect or they've got this vision, but just the inability, I guess, to really listen and collaborate. I mean, I have a dozen filmmaker friends in Los Angeles who are all much more talented than I, and I send them my script and I take notes from them. And I think in the 18 months leading up to my production, I had 33 drafts of the screenplay, and then another 5 during production, and then we reshot the final scene even. So I always making it better, always listening, being collaborative, being open, like everybody's talking about, letting the outside world in and all this stuff. I feel like a lot of time first-time filmmakers, they just don't realize what an asset that can be.
I ditto everything that they're saying, and I would add that a lot of filmmakers that maybe come out of university or film school, everyone wants to typically be a director, and they think that that's okay. I'm going to go and direct a film, and I always say, well, try to learn what all the other departments do, and anything you do on a film is going to aid you as a director, even if you're like a PA or a prop assistant or working even with grip and electric, maybe not as much, but at least you learn the temperament of each department and kind of the inner workings, and never be afraid. And you get a question a lot about, should I go to film school, should I go to, it all just depends, I guess, on the individual and on their support, I guess, of the family, and that's kind of their decision. But if they don't go to film school, you can learn on the set. My film school was really just making films. I got my degree, but in theater and something else initially very different. And then I learned, I started PAing, and I PA'd on so many different huge films and AD'd a little tiny film, and then I produced a film, within, I think it was like 14 months. But it was all that work. I even did props on some horrible commercials, and but you learn. So just to kind of keep that open, and every experience that puts you on set or talking with creative people is, just listen. Very quickly, so I was PAing on a Bronx Tale, which was Robert De Niro's first directorial film, and all the dailies were open. Anyone that was working on the film could sit in dailies. And so some evenings after we wrapped, I would race over to try to see dailies, but it was hard because I was a PA. So I was doing things. On Saturdays, he would sometimes watch 5 hours of dailies, and I was the only person outside of him, the DP and his editor in that room for 5 hours listening to Robert De Niro and his editor talk about. Nobody else showed up. It was like, oh, there's that girl. Yeah.
Well, I think all the advice, and I won't repeat anything. I think every single piece of advice that came down the line here was just fabulous. I mean, really terrific. I think first-time filmmakers need to feel sure that absolutely anything can be a great story. Sometimes people feel they have to find, the ideal situation, or write the ideal script, or option the ideal novel. If something speaks to you for whatever reason, that can be a great story. And I think the other thing is that no matter what you do, this idea of sort of serial failure toward, the next and the next and the next and the next, and De Niro would be the first to agree with this, being an old actor studio guy. It's all about process. There is no such thing as the absolutely perfect cut. Okay, now we're all done. I love this film. There's no frame I wouldn't change. It's never going to happen. So it's always about, the piece of advice is, you fulfill it the best you can, and you move on, and you take whatever was left undone, or whatever there is still to learn, and you put it toward the next thing that you're going to do, so that you're constantly in process, and you never then feel that you've stopped or that there's a wall. I don't know. You will always have a moment where you say, I could have done, woulda, coulda, shoulda, get over it, move on, and do it, do it on the next one.
Well, first of all, we're definitely in a historic time of great change and great opportunity. Anybody with who has a friend has access to a camera. To me, you have to ask yourself the question, not only is what is your story, but why is your story important to me? Because your story may be important to me. Maybe your story, so, and if you don't think about me, if you're only thinking about your expression and your process and your art, you're missing half the picture. It's not actually painting, it's filmmaking, and it's, so to me, I'm always, whenever anybody comes up to me, I that's my marker. Are they going to be great, or are they going to be good? Because if they're good, they might actually be really have fabulous visions and be very motivated and all that stuff. But if they're going to be great, they're going to spend enough time imagining themselves as their mother watching their movie, or their friend watching their movie, or and really be able to identify as who's your audience. I asked my director on Life Inside Out over and over and over, who's the audience for this movie? And she hated the question. Now she loves the question, because she's seen through the festivals who her audience is. And now she gets it. So the next time she does a movie, she's going to be like having an inner dialogue already with who her audience is, and it'll enrich the next movie, I think, even more. I think it's really important.
I think it's a great question, because when I started this film, and this is my first feature film, many people, well-intentioned, did everything to scare me and to scare the producer as well, and they were telling us that it was very different from doing short films. It was a totally different dimension, and we could not think the same way as we think of a short film, and we had to hire the best people in this and in that. And I heard so much bullshit which didn't prove to be true. After that, I even put together a course which I sometimes give in Brazil about directing your first feature film, which I think is as its own specific challenges, because after that you learn and you do things differently. But doing your first feature film has its own challenges, and most of the time they are not the ones that people tell you. And the most important thing which I learned is that it's not, doing a feature film is not that different from doing a short film. You just need to focus for a longer period of time, and that's the hard part. But it's it really is the most important part. And as far as hiring the best people, I don't agree with that, because I think you have to work with the people you feel most comfortable with, the people who share the same vision as you do. And in my film, we happen to have a big star who there in Brazil who agreed to do the film, and then everybody said, well, if you have that guy, you have to have this DP, this I don't know, this makeup person or whatever, and it didn't prove to be true. So I didn't buy this, and I kept working with the same people, and it proved to be I think the right decision. And but the real fear I had, so I was not scared about these issues before and during the shoot, but the real fear I had was and it comes back to your point, was right after we finished the film and it premiered in a couple of important festivals here and there, but I could not find distribution. And it took me 6 months to find a distribution, and we finally released the film in Brazil and sold it to TV, but there was a 6 month period where we didn't have distribution, and that's the real scary part, because you happen to think, well, I did all this work for years and nobody's going to see the film. So I don't know if you can really forecast your audience. I think I would question that, because at the end of the day, our audience was not at all the one I thought it would be. But I agree with you; it's something that needs to be thought of, and distribution is a very challenging issue all over the world, and needs to be thought out as much as it can beforehand.
That's a very